You know I'm right on football right here for Landry Football live on Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, and on demand wherever you get your podcasts. It's Nick Durst and Joe Calabrese. And Joe, are you ready for another week of football? This season is just flying by. And again, the story this week is COVID-19. The Giants are all getting hit with it, but good thing for the Giants is they have a bye week, so hopefully it won't impact them too much as they make that push to go 6-10 and win the NFC East. But now you have some issues with the Texans getting the flu.
Yeah, so it seems like the Texans have gotten hit with the flu bug and the COVID bug this year. So flu's better than COVID, I can tell you that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So I think Larry Tunsil, he's going to be inactive against the Patriots because he got the flu. We're going to go through all of our games today. And the big news this week is that Taysom Hill is the starting quarterback for the Saints. So, Joe, I hope you were wise enough to go pick him up with fantasy and start him at tight end.
He's definitely going to have eligibility. We will see how that game goes. The Saints were basically the primary major news of the week because we got some injury updates on Drew Brees. Obviously, his condition seems to be more wild by the day. Obviously, they found more cracked ribs, but it seems like he's only going to be on injury reserve for about 3 weeks, and then he'll be able to come back. So pretty wild stuff. He sustained a pretty serious injury, for most normal people, but he'll likely be back by the end of the season. But yeah, the Saints, Sean Payton made a very, very controversial decision, I think, because a lot of people were ready to see Jameis Winston with this particular group. Obviously, he 180'd that, and he decided to start Taysom Hill instead. A lot of people are speculating maybe he starts Taysom Hill, and then maybe he goes to Jameis Winston, kind of like an opener situation in baseball. So we shall see. We shall see. But yes, I picked up Taysom Hill in one league.
Yeah, very smart. Big move there. And of course, we're going to get to the games real soon. But some injury news as we always do first. Teddy Bridgewater, he wants to play. He's got to test his knee in pregame, but he is questionable. So PJ Walker, who is one of the best XFL quarterbacks, and of course was with Matt Rule and Temple, may start a quarterback. And the Lions, Matthew Stafford, give this guy credit. I thought he'd be hurt in week 3. He's played every game so far. He's listed as questionable, and he expects to play. For the Ravens, Calais Campbell and Brandon Williams are both doubtful, and this is a big setback for Baltimore. And we're going to get to that game, Joe, but real quick, the loser of the Baltimore-Tennessee game, they're out of the playoffs, right? There's no way they're going to make it.
Yeah, I mean, for the Titans, the last couple of weeks have been in the midst of a slide, and they placed the Jadeveon Clowney on injured reserve as well. So I think the Titans need this game probably a little more than the Ravens because I think the Ravens will get the benefit of being able to play some of the AFC North teams down the stretch and maybe collect a few extra wins. Obviously, the Ravens and the Giants are one of those games too, so that's another winnable game for Baltimore. So to me, the onus I think on the Titans is to try to figure out a way to get to 10 wins. If they can get to 10 wins, they could probably get in, but I think that's going to be super hard now that we know that the Raiders are good, the Dolphins are good, the Browns are pretty good. A lot of teams are going to be fighting for those 6 and 7 seeds in the AFC. But yeah, so a couple more
good
injuries
teams there. Yeah, and I was just going to say the big game today, and not today, but this weekend is going to be the Raiders and the Chiefs. Major playoff implications there for the Raiders, but
right.
Yeah, we'll get to that later on. Huge game, big game to bet on.
Yeah, huge game to bet on. Obviously, the Raiders have already beaten the Chiefs once this season. The Chiefs suffered their only loss to the Raiders. So it seems like John Gruden and Mike Mayock and Derek Carr, they're doing a lot to turn around that Raiders team real quick. Obviously, we like them. Said they've been a 9-7 contender for most of the season. Just a couple more injury notes. Marshawn Lattimore for the Saints, right? We keep talking about Saints. He's not going to play this week. He's got an abdomen injury. And I believe that Noah Fant, if you're starting him in fantasy, he's expected to play against the Dolphins this week. And also Stephon Gilmore, he's missed the last 3 weeks. I believe the Patriots he will be starting for the Patriots today. He's missed the last couple of weeks with a knee injury. So just a couple more notes.
So, of course, Drew Brees is out. Again, we got Josh Hill's out, Myles Garrett's out, Zach Ertz, Joe Mixon, Christian McCaffrey, who I don't know, he came back, he looked great. Now it looks like he's not going to play again. Very bizarre situation there at the Panthers. Kenny Galladay, DeAndre Swift, Danny Amendola, Laviska Shenault, DeJavion Clowney, Myles Gaskin, David Johnson, Sam Darnold, your guy, Clay Farrell, Sammy Watkins, and Mitchell Schwartz all out. Who knows if Darnold's ever going to play? This is going to impact the Jets' long-term thinking here as to whether or not Darnold could be the starting quarterback. So we'll get into all that when we get to the games. And I think it's time to pick some games, Joe. So what should everybody do? Visit nj.pointsbet.com and enter the promo code FREECASH, all caps, one word, and you will make some money. I think Joe's been pretty good this year with his picks, and if you listened to him 100% of the time, he would certainly be up big time here this season.
Yes, sir.
We got some big games this week, so we got to bring in an expert here. So here he is. He's from InTheZone.io, Johnny V TV. Johnny, what's going on, buddy?
Butter, what's up, guys?
Johnny, how's it going? Why don't you give our listeners a little bit of your background here and your handicapping?
Of course. So I do obviously right for InTheZone. I put out my weekly taste. You can find it every week. I also put out picks for JDF Sports. And every week, honestly, it's just monitoring all the lines, see what's going on with the injury reports, like little things like the weather, certain trends. You end up spotting a lot of trends throughout the season. And a lot of times you just got to ride with it because for whatever reason, it's just in particular something that keeps happening and it's a way to make money. It's not going to happen every week. Like, for example, one of my big trends for a player prop bet perspective, DK Metcalf, I take the over on his yards every week. Not that it always hits, but, he's got 90 yards or more in every game except for, I think, 2 or 3, and it's week 11. So, he's got a high percentage, just like certain things like that.
Awesome. Great stuff there. And definitely want to check out Johnny's Instagram. He does some great game picks every Sunday morning, but now he's going to give you the picks here as well with us. So let's go, boys. We're going to go through every game from now through Monday night. We'll start with the Patriots taking on the Houston Texans. And for the purpose of this segment, we're using points bets, spreads, and over-unders and whatnot. So that's what we're going to be consistent with. Joe, we'll start with you in this one. Patriots coming off a big win. They want to make sure they could make that chance to make the playoffs perhaps. They are 1.5-point favorites here, heading to Houston to play the Texans. But Larry Tunsil is out with the flu.
Yeah. So I mentioned before, Stephon Gilmore expected to be back here. I've seen this line move to 2 in certain spots. I think the Patriots over the course of the last 2 weeks have really seemed to right the ship. Last week, that Sunday night game obviously was very, very, very fishy. I ended up betting the Patriots last week. I picked the Ravens on the show, but I ended up taking the Patriots with the points. I think it were 6.5. The Ravens were 7, and the line moved to 6.5 right before the start of the game, and the Patriots ended up winning. So, seems like the Patriots have really righted the ship. I think Belichick's going to at least get these guys to make a push here in the second half of the season, try to push for a playoff spot. Still not totally out of the reach. It's very attainable for these guys. So I'm going to take the Patriots here. Like I said, the line is 2 in certain spots, but that doesn't bother me. I'll gladly take the points and lay the Patriots on the road against one of the worst teams in the NFL.
All right, Johnny, what are you thinking on this one?
You know what? Honestly, I hate this game. The Patriots they're a weird team. Like last week, even in a monsoon bowl, they looked pretty good against a strong Ravens team. And, they look like a team that could be a force to be reckoned with down the stretch. But then, they have these moments where they just can't put up points. Texans aren't a good team. They're just not. They have Deshaun Watson. Will Fuller's finally doing what we were hoping he was going to do. I mean, the guy's made of glass, so he stayed on the field and he's able to produce. Cooks is starting to come on a little bit. 2 points. The home dog getting 2 points is always weird. That's a number you always got to keep on the radar. I'm actually going to go with Houston today. Like I said, 2 points at home. That's a weird number. Houston got embarrassed last week at Cleveland. They just flat out didn't show up. I think that they're going to right the ship today and at the very least cover. I actually picked the Texans to win. I think it's going to be a slight margin, But to tell you the truth, if I was actually putting money on it, I wouldn't bet this game because there's too many variables, and it's like honestly a toss up.
All right, I think I'm going to go with the Patriots on this one. I think they can certainly win by at least a field goal. I did like what I saw from them slightly in their last game, but I bet against we went against them, Joe. For the most part, we said the Ravens were going to probably win that game, and that's it. I learned my lesson. Can't go against Bill Belichick anymore. Joe, you want to take this question from Breastman? Damian Harris is going against the Texans, the league's 32nd ranked run defenses. There's still a question mark on the backfield situation in New England.
Well, we saw Rex Burkhead have a big week last week, so week to week, obviously, you never know what you're going to expect out of this Patriots backfield. A lot of people do like Damian Harris. I wouldn't necessarily rely on him, but for the purposes of if you need a flex guy in your fantasy lineup this week, there are guys who you could probably do worse than Damian Harris. So,
Sony Michel is back this week, just as an FYI.
It's true.
It's true, and you know that whenever he guy's healthy, that's who they ended up leaning on. What's up, Jackie? Thanks for tuning in. All right, next game up here. This game, unless you're a fan of these two teams, why would you even bother to watch this game? And if you're gambling on this one, something might be wrong with you. You got the Lions and the Panthers. Panthers without McCaffrey, may be out without Teddy Bridgewater. So Lions are +1 in this one. We'll start with you on this game, Johnny.
This is another one. Bridgewater is a true game time decision. They gave a designation on them. If Bridgewater plays and he's not too banged up, I think I'm going to go with them. I'm going to go with Carolina because, listen, they're not a bad team. They almost went into Kansas City a couple weeks ago and beat the Chiefs. They're a team capable. They have weapons. Matt Rule has honestly turned this team. They're supposed to be in a rebuilding year, but they're a team that a couple more wins, they're really in contention for a wild card spot. Now with the 7th seed, that's not out of the question. Detroit, Stafford, man, he's a warrior, bro. It's going to take a gunshot wound to the face to keep him out. He played through a broken back, broken ribs, so this thumb thing's not going to hold him out. Babytron, Kenny Golladay, no go today. No Danny Amendola. Hard for me to really look the Lions and think they're ready to take it over. I just don't think Stafford's right now. I think Carolina's more depth to taking this game if they're a little more shorthanded than the Lions are.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think Swift is a big loss for the Lions today, and Stafford's quite injured, so that's going to impact things. I'm with you. I think if Teddy Bridgewater's playing in this game, you gotta go with the Lions. But I mean, if Teddy Bridgewater's playing in this game, you gotta go with the Panthers. I think the Panthers are the better team for everything you just said. The Lions are leading the league in receiving yards allowed to running backs. Will Mike Davis have a dual threat today against the Lions? It's highly likely because the Lions have won some games, but I just view them as one of the worst teams in the league. There's nothing that I've seen from the Lions this year that made me say, oh, wow, they could be dominant. They could be a playoff team. There's just nothing there. So I'm going to roll with the Panthers on this one. I think I'll even roll with them with P.J. Walker as the starting quarterback. Joe?
Yep.
Yeah, the Panthers have been super, super competitive. The Lions last week had that tremendous comeback win very, very late against Washington. They had the 59-yarder by Prater at the very end of the game to win. So they're coming off a huge win. Obviously, we like the Panthers, right? We say this every week. When we have the opportunity to grab the Panthers and the points, usually we do it, right? But even so, the one doesn't really hurt. Doesn't really bother me as much because I think PJ Walker, he's played a few snaps this year. I'm really confident in this Carolina team, especially on offense. Even without Christian McCaffrey, they've proven that they can put up points without him, regardless.
I think the better bet in this game is probably the under. I think the over-unders are around 48 right now because I just don't see how these teams are going to be putting up big points. But you never know. All right, next game up, we got an interesting one, which is Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Washington football team. And the Washington football team are 2-point favorites in this one. The Bengals have done a good job this season in covering a lot, so I'm going to go with the Bengals. You've seen absolutely nothing from Washington to believe they're going to be able to put a team away, and the Bengals. It's just a matter of time before they start getting some wins. Hopefully, they don't win next week against the Giants because that's the big game there. As Breastman points out, despite a 2-7 record this season, Washington has the league's best pass defense going against the very pass-heavy QB in Burrow. The Bengals need to focus on the run side to pull off the win. Yeah, I see. I saw Gio Bernard is trending on Twitter this morning. A lot of people are expecting him to run the ball a lot. So give me the Bengals +2 here. John?
You know what? I love that little nugget that we just saw. I think Washington at home is going to be tough. I think Antonio Gibson is going to have a big day. I could see about 120 total scrimmage yards for him, maybe a couple touchdowns. As long as Alex Smith, stays his typical game manager role, let that defense get after Joe Burrow. I think the Bengals always want to try and run the ball and be a balanced offense, but they just end up acting like a kid playing Madden or like me playing Madden. I just don't – running the ball to me is not appealing. I just want to sling it 5 times. Washington's defense is pretty good, man. They really are. I think that they squeak out a home win. 2 points, honestly, is not even – it's likely not going to be a 2-point game. You know what I mean? So I think Washington's going to win outright today. It's a close one, though. It's definitely going to be an interesting one.
Joe, you going with your guy, Joe Burrow? The Joe's got to stick together in this one.
I love Joe Burrow. I think he's going to be great. But for the reasons that Johnny just said, I'm going to take Washington here because I do think that this is the kind of game where we're going to see Alex Smith and his ability to manage a game really kind of shine. Again, Washington's pass defense is the best in the league, and I knew that because I have Burrow in fantasy, right? So I had to make a decision today, and I am not playing Burrow, so that's going to be interesting to look back on a week from now. But Washington's defense, they're not bad. Obviously, we say this every week. They're super competitive. Should have won that game in Detroit last week, obviously. They had
beat the Giants twice, too.
Yeah, but I think they'll come home today. I think they'll take care of business. I think the line is definitely it's something that if you want to play Cincinnati, I could see why. But I'm not, like I said, not afraid of the two. Give me Washington. I agree with Johnny here.
My bonus pick is Washington wins Thursday against the Cowboys. Because, the last thing we need, and Johnny, I don't know what you're a fan of, but if the Cowboys win today and win Thursday, then we got to hear about – he's a Falcons fan. Then we got to hear about how the Cowboys are going to go to the playoffs to turn things around. We don't need to hear that for the next
No, we're not going to hear it. It's not happening.
All right, next game up here, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on Luton and the Jacksonville Jaguars, Luton Lunacy. And the Steelers are 10.5-point favorites here. And if the Jaguars have taught us anything over the past few weeks, it's that, A, they know how to draft 6th-round quarterbacks, and B, it's that they always cover the spread. So I got to go with the Jaguars here. The Steelers are going to absolutely win this game, but I don't see it being a blowout. Look what the Jaguars were able to do against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers offense, which is far superior. So this is going to be I could definitely see this game being within 10. So I got to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars here. Joe, what do you think?
So what we know from the Pittsburgh Steelers is that they always play down to competition. And the few games that we've seen this year, Denver in week 2 being an example, and I believe the game against the Cowboys a couple of weeks ago in Dallas being a perfect example of this. For some reason, Mike Tomlin's teams just always seem to play up to competition or down to competition. I love this line because I believe it started at 9 or 9.5, and I think it's gone to 10.5 since. So in that case, even if Pittsburgh's up by 3 scores late, a late touchdown by Jacksonville, that'll do it. That'll give you a backdoor cover. Jacksonville, very, very pesky team. They've been in most games this season, despite the fact that, Gardner Minshew has missed, the last couple of games. So I'm with you, Nick. I like the Jaguars in the spot. I believe the Steelers will win the game outright, obviously. But I'm taking the points with the Jaguars like you.
All right, Johnny, what do you think on this one?
We're all on board, boys. I agree. Jacksonville usually plays Pittsburgh tough. They do play down to their competition. For whatever reason, they just can't keep their foot on the gas for 60 minutes when they're playing an inferior opponent. 10.5 is a lot of points. I actually expect a decent day from James Robinson. I love the fact that the Jags made the quarterback change, got Jake Watt in. He's exercising common sense and targeting DJ Chark a heavy amount, which for whatever reason, that hippie bum from the Midwest, Gardner Minshew, wouldn't do. So I think Chark can have a solid day, even against a strong Pittsburgh D. 10.5 is a lot. I'm with you guys. I think Jags cover that.
Yeah, Lutton he's been impressive. After failing to pull off a game-winning drive against the Packers last week, Russ wants to know, and only his third career start, Jake Lutton is going against Pittsburgh's #1 pass rush. Does he have any success today after losing a close one against the Green Bay? It depends what you consider success. I mean, can I see this guy having a touchdown or two? Sure, but Pittsburgh's defense is just too good, and it's not going to be the prettiest of days there for him or any quarterback coming up against the Steelers this season. All right, the next game up, and we got to start with Johnny in this one, of course, and that is his Falcons, who are 3.5-point underdogs, taking on Mr. Hill and the New Orleans Saints. Johnny, excited for this one?
Let me just say, I haven't been this excited since I lost my virginity. I'm so happy to watch the game. Taysom Hill, I picked him up in one of my leagues, and I'm exploiting a loophole, and I'm starting him at tight end. Love it. That's affluence right there. I'm so excited to watch this game. I got Atlanta at +5, and one of my tips I can tell anybody, anytime the road team is getting 5 or 5.5, you take them. Always take them at 5 or 5.5. It's going to hit a lot more times than it's not. Atlanta, I got them at 5. They've went down to 3.5. There's no Marshawn Lattimore. Taysom Hill starting. I think Atlanta's going outright, man. I think Calvin Ridley, they're going to eat. Matt Ryan's going to have a day. The Falcons are streaking, dude. I hate betting the Falcons. They're a loser franchise, but I think today we're going to see a heavy dose of an offensive aerial attack that we've been accustomed to seeing for the last 10 years plus in the 12 years in the Matt Ryan era. Atlanta not only covers whatever the spread is now 3.5, but I think they win outright. I'm excited for this game though, boys. I really am.
Joe, before you give your pick, does the Saints' decision to start Taysom Hill say anything about Jameis Winston's future in New Orleans?
Yeah, it's not going to last long.
Absolutely.
I'm with Johnny here. I think that this is a really good spot for the Falcons, and I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I believe right now, according to PointsBet, the over-under for this game is 49.5. Without Marshawn Lattimore, I have no idea why this game's not at least at 51 or 52. So I expect a lot of points to be scored in this game. I think this is a really, really huge smash spot for Matt Ryan. I don't think he's going to get a better opportunity this year to put up a big game. I like him for purposes of DFS. He's one of the 2 or 3 quarterbacks I'm using this week. I believe the Falcons, again, what he said, the last couple of weeks, they've kind of seemed to right it a little bit. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs here, but I do think they're going to put up a couple of wins towards the end of the season. They are notorious for being a better second half team the last couple of years after particularly tough starts most of the time due to injury concerns and stuff like that. But we'll see what Taysom Hill is capable of doing. I still think it's possible that Trump Payton pulls the old rabbit out of his hat and he starts Taysom Hill, and then all of a sudden he kind of relies on Jameis to play the rest of the game.
So Hill does the first play, he runs it, and then Winston comes in.
I can very much see him going back and forth and kind of outsmarting. Anyway, I like the Falcons here. I think they're going to score a bunch of points. Maybe they don't necessarily win the game outright, but if they're going to give me 3.5 points, then I'll take the 3.5 points with the Falcons.
Joe, if you are a Michael Thomas fantasy owner, are you very concerned with the fact that the Saints are probably going to run the ball a lot?
Yes. I mean, I was concerned as a Michael Thomas fantasy owner, even though I'm not this year. I was last year. I would have been concerned back in week 1. And everything since then has kind of just not gone Thomas's way. Obviously, the quarterback shift and what they're doing with this game doesn't really particularly favor him. Obviously, Kamara, of the two major skill guys they have, is by far the better play and has been the more consistent play this season. So, yeah, if I'm a Michael Thomas owner, I'd be worried. I would have tried to trade him maybe like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
And you got to be happy if you're a Kamara owner because he's already having a great year, and it's probably going to only get better from here. All right, the next game we got the Eagles taking on the Cleveland Browns. I'm so sick of this narrative, and it's been disproved by now, which is that the Browns are better without Odell Beckham Jr. That's total BS. They've been atrocious without Odell Beckham Jr. But luckily for them, they're playing the Eagles today, who are horrendous. So I'm going to go with the Cleveland Browns here, -2.5. I think that it's going to come down to Carson Wentz, who is due for an interception because he didn't throw on last week. So he's due for an interception. And right on cue, Breastman says Carson Wentz leads the league in interceptions going against the Browns, who are ranked 4th in takeaways. However, Baker Mayfield has not thrown a TD his last 2 games and has failed pass for more than 150 yards in the last 2 games. Is there a rush-heavy Brown offense may hurt Mayfield's fantasy value? If you have Baker Mayfield in fantasy, drop him. Play Drew Lock. I think that's a better play. That's a better lock there in fantasy. Mayfield, he's just not. He doesn't have the. I guess he's looked worse without Odell Beckham Jr. That's really what it comes down to. He's got Jarvis Landry, who's great. He doesn't even look to him. So I think the Browns, ugly game, win this one, and it's going to be very run heavy. This game is 45.5 right now is the over-under. I kind of lean more towards the under here, just the way the Browns have been playing offensively. But we'll start with you, Johnny, on this game.
Yeah, I think the Browns win, cover. I like the under as well. I think people don't. I feel like a lot of people still don't understand because of the firepower that they have at receiver with Odell when he's healthy, Juice Landry, Rashard Higgins, Austin Hooper, David Njoku. I feel like they don't understand that the Browns are a run-first team. They're a run-heavy team. They're very, very effective. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. I think today the both of them could probably combined. I think we could see like a 250-yard game from them, like combined. Cleveland, to me, man, they should be a lot better. There's no Myles Garrett today. That's the one bugaboo for them. But at home, they're still in the thick of it for a playoff spot. I think they need this one, and I believe they got it. It's going to be an ugly game. I don't know if the total is going to go over like 38, but I like Cleveland today.
And the crazy thing here, Joe, is that if the Eagles lose, they're still in first place, which is just insane. So, Joe, what do you think about this game? And give us your take here on long-term, how this game might impact the NFC East.
Yeah, I was going to say, as of right now, if we expect the Giants to continue a potential NFC East push, they're going to need the Eagles to lose this game. So I agree with both of you guys. I think this game is going to stay under. I think there's going to be a lot of running on both sides. Miles Sanders for the Eagles today without Myles Garrett in the lineup for the Browns. He's another guy I like in DFS. I think Miles Sanders, there's a very good chance he can run for 100 yards and a touchdown or maybe 2 today. I think he's going to have a really, really big day for the Eagles. That said, I think the Browns have shown us this season that they are also fully capable of being able to run and being able to run in big spots. So we've seen the Eagles. They went on the road last week against the Giants, and they lost that game. In reality, they should have lost twice to the Giants, right? So, so going back, they're continuing their road trip here against the Browns. I think the Browns will play another strong effort at home. Their defensive efforts at home this season have been really, really good. They haven't really allowed a game to get away from them at home. So again, I think the under's a really, really great play here. I think the running backs in this game, both, all three of them actually, with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, I think all those backs are going to have a huge day. But I'm going to take the Browns here. I'm going to lay the 2.5.
Yeah, I think that's the play. But the Eagles, that tie is going to come back to really help them big time this season when it comes to making the playoffs. All right, next game. It's a huge game this week. Joe, we talked about it a little bit in the beginning. The Titans versus the Ravens. Most likely the losing team is done. out of the playoffs. They're not going to make it. Not sure which way I'm leaning for the game, but for betting purposes, right now I'm seeing the Titans at +6. So I think that's actually a big number for this game. So I'm going to go with the Titans +6 here. There's just nothing I've seen from the Ravens this season, really, that would make me think that they're going to be the Ravens of 2019, where they're going to be putting up 40 points and beating a team by 20. The Titans are just too good for that with Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill. So I'm gonna go with the Titans here +6. Joe?
So I have a trend, I guess. Well, not really a trend, but it seems like this game is trending in the over direction. I actually like the under in this game.
50 is a big over-under.
I think 50 is a really big number. They didn't hit that mark in the playoffs when they played each other. And I believe in that game, what we saw from Derrick Henry, I think the Titans are going to see a lot of 7 and 8 man boxes today. I think they're really going to.
And the Ravens defense stopped Derrick Henry today with a loss on the defensive line to nose tackle Brandon Williams. No.
Yeah, no Calais Campbell, no Brandon Williams
out too. Yeah.
But I still think that the Ravens are going to scheme and they're going to stack the box and they're going to just try to take Derrick Henry totally out of the game, and they're gonna say, "Hey, Ryan Tannehill, you have to throw for 300 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns in order to beat us." So, and the 50, I think, is a really, really big number for this game. But that said, I'm with you in regards to I think this line is way too high. I think the Titans are a good team. I think the Ravens are a good team. We've seen Lamar Jackson struggle a little bit the past couple of weeks against the Colts and the Patriots. He hasn't really been totally himself. Hasn't really been himself or what we saw from last season. He's definitely not had as good of a season. So I think this line is really, really big. I think the Ravens will end up making this a one-score game at home, even with the losses on the defensive line. So I'm with you. So I'm going to take the Titans plus the 6, and I'm going to take the under in this game because I think both teams are going to sell out to stop Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson on both sides.
All right, Johnny, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I agree. This is a weird one. Titans were my AFC representative for the Super Bowl this year. I don't like how they just show up one week and don't show up the next. They are so spotty. It's very concerning, and it's going to be a problem come down the stretch. In terms of today, 6.5 points. I actually have the Titans in a teaser. I think they're going to at least cover with no Brandon Williams and no Calais Campbell. I think that should be enough. I think it's going to be obviously very run heavy. I think I picked the Ravens to win, but I could see something be like Justin Tucker hitting like a last second 50-yard field goal to send the Ravens to the W column. But Tennessee, I do think we'll cover that 6, and I don't think it's going to be that high scoring.
No, definitely not. Like Joe said, the Titans really haven't gone over at all this season, so I would expect that trend to continue. All right, now we got Miami Dolphins, they're trying to win the AFC East here, and they are heading to Denver to take on the Broncos. Johnny, will come right back to you for this one right now. PointsBet has the Dolphins as 3.5-point favorites.
Miami has been butter the last month. They're 4-0. They look like a team that's ready to make a jump. I wasn't sold on Flores making that quarterback change to Tua. He's played well the last 2 games. It's a small sample size. Their defense has been insane. They're just pressuring other teams. They've been running the ball well without Myles Gaskin. They're hitting on all cylinders. They're hot right now. You don't go against a hot team. The best part about Miami, they're 7-2 against the spread this year. Nobody is better than them against the spread. And it's just they're so money, you can't go against them. And Denver has like this MO where they decide to play to not play for 3 quarters and then try to win it in the last quarter. They've done it for the last month. I think Miami is a no-brainer, -3.5. I just love the way they're playing. You can't buck the trend. You can't go against Miami. They're going to win today, cover. Then they got the Jets next weekend. That'll put them over to 8-3. They have a legitimate shot to win 11 games this year. Miami, I love watching them. Football's more fun when Miami's good.
Joe, what do you think?
I mean, I disagree, but unfortunately, he's right. Miami is a monster against the spread. They are awesome this season. I'm seeing this line at 4 in certain spots. So the fact that we could get it at 3.5 here is to our benefit. So I'm going to agree with Johnny. I think I'm going to take Miami minus the 3.5. What we've seen from Denver over the course of this season is that they tend to get behind in games and then tend to make pushes in the second half and come up short. So that bodes well in our favor. I think Brian Flores is easy. Right now, to me, he's the coach of the year in the NFL, and Johnny's also right in the sense the next 2 weeks for Miami, they win these 2 games, they're 8-3. All of a sudden, they're breathing down your boy Josh Allen's back in the Buffalo Bills. I told you this last week. They are a legitimate threat to win the AFC. It's a legitimate threat. A lot of people don't realize that yet. I think next couple of weeks, if Miami can win these games and take care of businesses against teams that they should beat, a lot of people are going to be opening their eyes to that. One last thing, of the games that we were seeing this week, this is the game that has the most discrepancy between teams that are betting on one side and teams that are betting on the other. I'm seeing 70+% of all money in this game going on Miami. So a lot of people agree with Johnny and I here.
Breastman says, today, will Tua become the first QB in the Super Bowl era to win his first 4 career starts while throwing 0 interceptions going against the Broncos? I think he's due for an interception. I think he's going to throw an interception today. And ultimately, if you want to talk about the Dolphins in the long run here for this season, it's going to come down to how well Tua can play. You see him improving each and every week. So if he's going to, there wasn't much film in him. So eventually you think these defenses might catch up and scheme something there. But, I kind of want to take Denver here, but you guys convinced me, so I'll roll with you guys and go Miami as well.
What I'll say for the Tua point is that usually players who play there, this is his first game in Denver, right? So obviously the air quality there, a lot of people always tend to struggle in their first games in Denver simply because it's just a huge adjustment to play in that atmosphere up there. So so to me, this seems like a game where the Dolphins are probably not going to be playing their best on offense because Denver's defense is actually, fairly solid, given the fact that they've struggled this season. But to me, the Dolphins, this team seems to be winning games with all three, in all 3 aspects, right? So they're on offense, they're pretty solid. On defense, they're pretty good. And special teams, they've been pretty good this season. So to me, it seems like it's going to be an effort. A combined effort today in order for them to win this game and cover like we think they are.
All right, next game up should be the most fun one of the week. I know I'll be locked in, and that is the New York Jets heading to Los Angeles to take on the Chargers. And despite the fact that the Jets have their best quarterback playing this one, the Chargers are favored by 10 points. You've seen the Chargers blow close games all season long, and this is going to be different for them this week. Herbert's just going to dominate from the start. The Jets are going to get absolutely destroyed. And finally, the Chargers get a win. They should have had a lot more wins so far this season. So give me the Chargers -10. I think Herbert has a huge day, like 350 passing yards for 3 or 4 touchdowns. Breastman says, and then we'll go to Joe. You can answer this and give your pick. Thoughts on the Jets' decision to cut their quarterback 1, Pierre Desir, with their cornerback 2 out with injury, as well as an offense in shambles with injury to the starting quarterback. They're now starting 3 rookies in the secondary against Herbert.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I don't think this is a game that's going to be particularly competitive. I think this game will resemble kind of the spot we saw with the Jets and the Colts earlier in the season. I think Herbert right now, obviously, all 3 of the rookie quarterbacks have been really good. Burrow's been really good. Herbert's been really good too. Has been really good. But in particular, Herbert, I think, has been most impressive simply because he's been able to hit the deep ball and he's been able to make a lot of big plays that a lot of players don't really necessarily tend to make until their second and third years. So to me, I think this is a huge spot for the Chargers. I'm not worried that this is 10 at all because I think the Chargers are probably going to win this game by about 20 points or so. So give me the Chargers here. We both agree. And, unfortunately, the Desir move, there was a game earlier in the season where he got burned. Oh, it was the Denver game on Thursday night where he got burned by Jerry Jeudy, and then he came back to make the interception. Unfortunately, that proved to be the highlight of his season, so to speak. He hasn't really worked out for the Jets. So, yeah, to me, this is going to be a 3-score game. I think the Chargers are going to blow them out.
Johnny, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I got the Chargers at -9.5. I think Herbert's going to have a big day. I took the over on his prop bet at 284.5 on passing yards. Keenan Allen's going to eat. Mike Wilmate's going to eat. Hunter Henry's going to have a day. I don't see. I can't see the Chargers not closing the door. They have a lot of frustrations and a lot of anger that they want to take out, and I think they should win this game by at least 3 possessions. So 9.5, 10 points doesn't matter to me. I think LA is going to lay down the lumber today.
Guys, breaking news: PJ Walker is starting. So
Okay,
Teddy Bridgewater is out.
Yeah,
so if you wait to place a bet on that one, maybe you can keep waiting and ignore that one because either way. But I think I'm going to still go with the Panthers with PJ Walker. All right, the next game up, and this is the return of Andy Dalton. You got the Cowboys here, who I think started the season like 0-8 versus the spread, which was really impressive. And they're taking on the Vikings, who are rolling here. They got that big win like Monday Night Football against the Bears, who had Nick Foles in there, who was absolutely horrendous up until his injury. And the Vikings, they're at home, 7.5-point favorites, which is a pretty big line. And the Cowboys have been bad, but they are significantly better with Andy Dalton. All that being said, though, I'm still going to go with the Vikings in this one. They're turning the curve. They're turning it around. 7.5, big line, but I just think the Cowboys, they're just so lousy that amount of point there doesn't really bother me too much. Johnny, what do you think?
Yeah, you know what? I think the Vikings are -7.5. That's still a little big for me, but like you said, the Cowboys are pathetic. Like Andy Dalton, he makes a difference, I guess, but not to the point where we're going to look at Dallas thinking that +7.5 is money. The Vikings, dude, like you said, they're turning a corner. Like they're trying to make a playoff push themselves. They won 3 in a row. They look good. Dalvin Cook is red hot. Justin Jefferson is maybe the best offensive wide receiver rookie this year. He's been absolute butter. I think Minnesota is going to take care of business -7.5. They're actually one of my teasers as well. So I think the Vikings make it 4 straight today. And
Breastman points out that the Cowboys are the second worst rush defense in the league, and he wants to know, Joe, do the Vikings manage Dalvin Cook's workload today to save the energy for more difficult teams, or do they give him free reign to run today?
I think Dalvin Cook is actually an MVP candidate right now, especially with the way the Vikings are trending. It kind of seemed like they were heading to like a disastrous 4-12, 5-11 type of season. Now I think there's a realistic path for them to get to, we'll say 8-8 or 9-7 and kind of fight for that last NFC playoff spot. I think they really seem to have turned it around. I don't think there's going to be any concern about managing Dalvin Cook's workload today.
I think Dalvin Cook's going to run more wild than Hulkamania today against the Cowboys.
Yeah, it seems like they'll rely on him big time the first 3 quarters or so in this game, and then depending on what happens later, assuming what I think is going to happen is I think the Vikings are going to eventually jump up by 2 scores and kind of maintain that lead throughout the rest of the game. The 7.5 is a little bit concerning simply because of that half a point. So if you're going to play this game, I think the best thing to do would be to buy the hook and to buy this down a little bit and get it to 7, so you can feel a little more safer about this. But I am going to take the Vikings here. I'm going to lay the 7.5 because I think with what we've seen the last couple of weeks, Kirk Cousins still not great, right? I don't think he's going to smash in any spot. But Justin Jefferson has been awesome as a rookie. Adam Thielen's had a couple of touchdowns, and obviously with the way Dalvin Cook has played, this Vikings team has enough to just beat up on a Cowboys defense, especially their rush defense that just isn't simply good.
All right, now we got, in this season for sure, this is the big 3 primetime games. They haven't been at primetime, but you get the National Game of the Week and then Sunday Football, Monday Football. They haven't had games this good all year, so we're going to get through them right now. We're going to start with the Packers going against the Colts. Once again, the Packers are getting disrespected. They're the underdogs. Every game this year, they've been the underdogs. I bet on them, and they've easily come away with the win. And this is like a prisoner of the moment thing here. The Colts are favored -2 because the Packers, they beat the Jaguars, but not by a lot. Johnny's getting his sunglasses back on here, so he's going to have a fire take here for us. But give me Aaron Rodgers. Give me the MVP. +2. That to me is the easy bet there. I do not see how the Packers don't win this with the +2. Johnny?
You know what, man? I picked the Packers to win. I think they'll cover that. It's pretty much a pick 'em game for the most part. Honestly, dude, like I'm uneasy about that. Like Green Bay's a good team, right? They have Aaron Rodgers is so disrespected. He's an MVP front runner right now. The problem is, dude, they're a soft team. They can lay the wood against a bad team. The Colts are a good team. If nothing else, their defense is one of, if not the best this year. The Packers struggle against teams that hit you in the mouth. The Colts defense can do that. So that's the one thing that because they don't like to get physical. That's just not their game. I'm going to go with Green Bay because I do think they're the better team and I think their offense can still put up. The Colts are like they're shady. But yeah, I think Green Bay will narrowly get this victory and cover that spread.
All right, Joe.
I love Aaron Rodgers in this spot simply because I like the matchup against Phillip Rivers. I think we haven't seen a game this year where Phillip Rivers has really taken his team out of it with turnovers. The closest game that I think we've had this season for that Colts team has been against the Browns. So I think this game in particular is going to tell us a lot about Green Bay because I think the Colts defense is pretty good and they are pretty smash mouth. And obviously 2 weeks ago when they played the Ravens, they did a really, really good job of stopping Lamar Jackson. But I think Aaron Rodgers is a different animal entirely here. I think he's in the middle of having his biggest, screw you season of his career. A lot of people seem to have
I guess the issue with Rodgers was just Danica Patrick, right? I mean, I guess that was the problem.
Might be.
If you look back to his golden years, he had Olivia Munn.
Yeah, I think shedding Danica Patrick has done
a battle of Aaron Rodgers against the league's best defense. Indy Breastman says Rodgers was unsuccessful against the Bucs, scoring only 10 points. Yeah, that was the most surprising game of the year against the number 3 ranked defense. Will he pull out a win today?
I believe so.
I believe so. But
yeah,
like I said, the good thing here is that the Colts could win, but we got the Packers at +2. So I think +2. Just the disrespect of Aaron Rodgers to have him be an underdog is just kind of crazy. And so far, I think it's the 3rd time this season. And every time the Packers have won the game. All right, now we got the big game, Sunday Night Football. And we'll start with you on this one, Joe. The Chiefs are a 7-point favorite, and the game is in Las Vegas. Chiefs Raiders. What do you think in this one, Joe?
I think the Chiefs are going to be extra motivated to get up for this game, obviously, because they've already lost to the Raiders once this season. I really, really like the Raiders. I think they're a really good team. I think Josh Jacobs is awesome. But I do think that Kansas City will be able to avenge that loss from earlier in the season. I think the Chiefs understand the implications of this game because their number 1 seed is no longer guaranteed because the Steelers are still undefeated, right? So you lose this game, I think you lose a significant edge in trying to get that number 1 overall seed in the AFC. Which is super important this year because with the extra playoff team, the number 2 seed actually plays on Wild Card Weekend. So this has a revenge factor to it all over it. I think Patrick Mahomes will shine in prime time. I think the Chiefs are going to score a lot of points in this game. The over/under right now is 56. I believe this game is going to go over. I think both of these teams are going to get into at least the low 30s. But I like Patrick Mahomes. I think he's going to have a huge day. I think he's going to have 3 or 4 touchdowns himself alone. So give me the Chiefs here. I'm going to lay the 7 on the road with against the Raiders. I'm not really too worried about the road team in this spot.
Patrick Mahomes is getting a lot of disrespect this season as well. No one mentions
Yep.
him in the MVP race, but his numbers are outstanding. All right, Johnny, what do you got in this one?
No way that the Chiefs lose 2 games in the same season to the Raiders. There's no way. Joe said it. They're going to be extra motivated, even on the road. Kansas City's got to stay motivated. They got to stay winning if they want to get that number 1 seed. No longer the number 2 gets a bye, which is honestly insane, but neither here nor there. Interesting stat. The Chiefs went 8-0 straight up and against the spread after their bye last season with an average win margin of 16.6. That streak started with a 40-9 win over the Raiders. They're out of their bye this week, and they play the Raiders. Great stat from Joe Osborne on Twitter at JTFOZ. And I think the nail on the head. I think Kansas City comes out firing. They're going to be motivated. They want to embarrass the Raiders. I like Vegas. John Gruden finally in his 3rd year is turning it around. He's got his team looking like somebody that can make some noise in the postseason. I just don't think it's going to be today. I think the Chiefs win by 10 to 13 points.
Joe, I like the over as well. Johnny,
And Andy Reid team's off
the bye week. I don't think he's ever lost
phenomenal.
a game. So, I mean, the law of averages would say he's due for a loss, right? So,
he's money coming off a bye.
I'm gonna take the Raiders +7 here. I think they keep it close. I think the Chiefs, the Raiders are in their heads. They fabricated this whole story, the Chiefs, about the bus driving around Arrowhead Stadium to like try to motivate their players. Who cares? I mean, big freaking deal. So I think that the Raiders, at the very least, keep this one close. And
they're activating a bunch of players off the COVID list too, so that'll help. I think a little bit, but again, me and Johnny, we're going to take the Kansas City side here.
I'll go Raiders +7, and I think the over here is certainly in play, even though this is one of the highest overs of the week. All right, so last game here of the week, and you have the Rams heading to Tampa Bay. Rams are 4.5 point underdogs according to PointsBet. For me, that's a pretty large number with the way the Rams have played this season. So give me the 4.5 there with the Rams. We've seen them fly to the East Coast a bunch of times this season. Hasn't really impacted them too much. And, you never know what you're going to go with these Buccaneers. One week they're blowing a team out. The next week they're getting blown out. So there's too much risk factor there for me to really be, say, the Buccaneers can win by 4.5. So give me the Rams here. The Rams want to keep pace now with the Seahawks to try to win the NFC West, because the last thing the Rams want to do is, finish with 11 wins and have to go to Philadelphia to play their first round game or something like that. So that's my mindset here. Sean McVay should be considered for Coach of the Year, the way he's bounced this team back. So give me the Rams here +4.5. Johnny?
You know what? I actually have this game at 4. I agree with you. Ali Marpet, the guard for Tampa, is out with a concussion. That's a big loss when you got a guy like Aaron Donald, who's an absolute game record. That's the one thing that concerns me, because we've seen how bad Tampa played against New Orleans a couple weeks ago, where their lines just got dominated. That's the one thing that concerns me. I'm going to go against my hunch here. I'm going to take Tampa -4. I think Tampa will cover that. But honestly, I would stay off that, and I'll tell you why. I think the under at 48.5 is the play. Let me explain why. The last 17 games or so, Monday nights, it's the most bizarre thing. It's inexplicable. The under is about 80%. The unders have been hitting at a ridiculous pace on Monday nights. I don't get it. I don't know why, but that's just the number, 48.5. I don't know if I can expect a high scoring. I don't think the Rams are going to score more than like 20 points. I think the Tampa might score like 25, 26. It'll be close, but I think that game's going to be important.
All right, Joe, what do you think here? Up against the clock.
Yeah. To Johnny's point, I think that loss for Tampa is absolutely huge. I think Aaron Donald's going to have a huge game. So we've seen this. It's in 4 in some spots. It's in 4.5 in a bunch of spots. I'm with you, Nick. I like the Rams here. I think this game is really. I think this is definitely the closest game of the week. I think there's no really one particular way to bet this game. The Rams are not as good on the road as they are at home. They're 2-3 on the road. They're 4-0 at home, obviously. But what I will say is, if you're going to bet this game, right, I think an interesting strategy to call back to what Johnny said at the very, towards the beginning of the episode, bet teams on 5 and 5.5. Usually those hits for some reason. So if the Rams are 4.5 and you feel comfortable and you want to buy the extra half a point, you want to move them to 5 and you want to play the Rams, I don't think that's a terrible decision either. But I think from what we've seen the past couple of weeks from Tampa Bay, they seem to be super streaky. They seem to not play as well against teams that are better. I mean, the one game that kind of bucks the trend a little bit was the Packers game. That was probably their best game of the season. But we've seen in other situations. The Chargers game was one of these examples. The Giants game was another example. It seems like Tampa Bay's played a lot of teams much closer this season than anticipated. So I'm not going to be too worried about the Rams on the road in this spot. They played well against Philadelphia this season. They played well in Buffalo this season. Seems like whenever they travel to the East Coast, they end up playing really well. So I'm going to take the Rams here. I'm going to take the 4.5. But if you want to bet it and you want to listen to our guy Johnny over here and you want to get it to 5 or 5.5, I think that would be a good strategy too.
All right, excellent job today, fellas. Johnny, let our listeners and viewers know where they can find you.
Always, baby, always. At Johnny VTV on Instagram, at _ Johnny VTV on Twitter. Putting out taste betting every single week. Make sure you tune into inthezone.io. My boy Nick holding it down. Joe always providing great insight. Boys, have a great Sunday. Let's make some money, huh?
Press man, Johnny, you're an awesome guest today. Your football knowledge outstanding. Joe and Nick should definitely bring you back on, no doubt about it.
Love that support.
That's going to do it here for this episode of I'm Right on Football. For our special guest, Johnny VTV, for Joe Calabrese, I am Nick Durst, and this has been I'm Right.
Thanks, Jackie.
Football.